August 20th, Salt Lake City. Matt, the fans got to show the craziest finish to a title fight you've ever seen because the announcers, they were announcing Leon Edwards' obituary. He lands the head kick and his fortunes are changed. Coming up this weekend, the trilogy bout, the main event, UFC 286. It's finally time from London, and Leon Edwards on home soil gets his chance to defend the belt. As always, one half of your hosting duo, Craig Allen, Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me to my left, to your right, respective socials, Matt Allen FNP. Matt, we couldn't be more excited about this welterweight fight because in the first fight, we'll get you up to speed. Kamaru Usman out-wrestles Leon Edwards. That's how it goes. In the second fight, for 4 rounds, Kamaru Usman beats...
Can we say this? No, round 1... Edwards beats Usman, gets on top of him, does well with his own wrestling. But yes, throughout the next 3 rounds, Kamaru slowly starts to dominate.
The tide definitely shifted. Usman gets it done. 5th round, he's still getting it done. And then Edwards is able to just change the fortunes. The crazy, video with his family back home where he's got the belt after the fight.
I got emotional watching that on Twitter.
It was absolutely amazing to see. And now, just these months later, August was their last fight. They get to match up once again in England. You have Onyx Labs' own Trevor Whitman trained Kamaru Usman taking on Team Renegade BJJ's Leon Edwards. And we talked about Team Renegade a couple of different times. You have Jake Hadley on this card that's trained out of there in the past. You have some other guys as well. But Fabian, Leon's brother, trains there. You've also seen Tom Breeze training out of that gym as well. And he's had success outside of the UFC since. So Matt, for Leon Edwards, wave of success. Everybody's finding all of this, love, adoration. The winning streak has just kind of continued for these guys. And now you come into this matchup where the seeds of doubt have crept in. And for Kamaru Usman, going into that fight with Leon Edwards, it wasn't like, okay, I'm just going to keep defending the welterweight belt. A lot of people are starting to say Usman's better than Georges St-Pierre. He's the greatest of all time.
By a lot, it was like a lot of Dana White.
No, and it was a lot more than just Dana White. It was the conversation.
If you know, you know.
And Edwards, it wasn't middleweight. It could have been light heavyweight. For Usman, it wasn't middleweight. It could have been light heavyweight. A lot of things were setting themselves on the path. And for Usman, too, he's already been credited as an actor. It was starting to get a little bit crazy. Kind of like Adesanya when he fought Jan Blachowicz, and Usman didn't even have to switch a weight class for that loss.
I don't know a lot about hockey, but I can bring up a lot of basketball examples. Do you know what I start to worry about with a guy like Kamaru Usman? At what point of the Brandon Roy injury point is he on? Because for Kamaru, those stories about him not being able to walk upstairs, only being able to go backwards down them, not being able to stand on things like concrete for long periods of time.
Yeah, but I have a hard time on concrete.
That's fine, Craig. You don't fight people inside cages for any minutes at all, much less Leon Edwards for 25 of them. So I don't really think you should compare yourself to a guy like Kamaru Usman ever again. But I do get concerned when a guy is 35 years of age, and when a lot of the storylines we do hear about him being about, hey, he can't be the guy that he used to be because the athleticism, the injuries are starting to pile up. And that was a conversation even leading into the second Leon Edwards fight. I brought this up earlier on in the card about the Joanne Luana Carolina fight, about how, hey, we both had Shevchenko to win her last matchup, but we had both said she is starting to show a couple signs of decline. And I don't want to say Usman wasn't at the best point of his career because he was knocking guys out. It looked like his boxing had really done the upgrade to match what his wrestling was at, but I think it is fair to start bringing up some of those questions with a guy who is 35 years of age, who the injuries are starting to become a part of the conversation. And I will say this, I was very surprised to see where the odds were, especially when we started doing this video, because after the second fight, I thought Leon Edwards didn't solve the puzzle, because that's a little extreme, but he has all the answers to the quiz now. Not that the quiz isn't extremely hard and will take 25 minutes to solve, but you know what I mean. Can he out-wrestle Kamaru Usman? No. But he can hold his own in some of the areas. I think that's fair to say. Can he outstrike Kamaru Usman? Without a doubt. And I do think for Edwards, this will be an interesting thing to keep your eye on. I'm not saying I'm picking Edwards because of this, or I'm not picking Usman because of this, but I will be curious to see how Edwards fights that first round. Not to where he's going to go for takedowns like we saw at the end of the first round, or the second time they fought, but I'll be curious to see if Edwards will be very aggressive with his own kicks, because if he goes for a lot of kicks and starts kicking the knee and the legs of Usman, it will start to stabilize him as the fight goes on and make it a lot harder for Usman to get some of those takedowns in.
And you know how good Leon Edwards' pure boxing is, especially when he faces off against a lot of these strikers. He's very accurate with his shots. His head kicks are great. You saw that, both of those things in the fight against Bilal Muhammad before it ended up in a no contest. For Leon Edwards, it was such a nice run, and the win streak was so great all the way up through, but it didn't really get accentuated by not having bonuses. That was kind of a thing, and he has one over Seth Baczynski, and he has one over Kamaru Usman.
They were dominant, but they weren't like show-stopping, hey, tell all your friends about it
and when you look at Usman, he's got a fight of the night in the first Colby Covington fight. He's got performance bonuses against RDA, against Burns, and against Masvidal, and you look at those fights, I mean, Covington, Masvidal, and Burns, those are title fights right there. So Usman, he was just kind of pouring gas on the fire. He was able to go out there and really strike for strike's sake against Gilbert Burns, hurt him, finish him. The fight against Masvidal, he cold-cocked him and sent him flying. And then he really did look good. In both of those Covington fights, though, Covington had success with his own boxing, and especially in the first fight between the two of them. The first fight, Colby Covington was on his way to winning the fight, so it seemed. And then it was Usman finishing him near the end, just like Edwards did to Usman. So, Matt, in this matchup, trilogy bout, Usman gets to go back to the drawing board. I would assume hot and heavy and early with the takedown attempts.
I think we'll see a lot of wrestling from Usman, because the thing about Usman is, even if you were his biggest believer and you looked at just the snapshots of his knockouts, they're not the cleanest technique-wise.
Like, that one against Masvidal.
But no, the run against Masvidal is not great technique by Usman. It's a defensive liability for Masvidal. He throws a lazy check hook and doesn't keep his right hand up at all. So for Usman, he is able to capitalize on his opponent's mistakes, but I do wonder at this point with Leon Edwards, they say this a lot in boxing. This is a Teddy Atlas quote. It's, hey, when you win a title in boxing, you then get 30% better just because of confidence. Like, you getting that belt helps you kind of upgrade and become to the next level. And I'm not saying that, okay, just without that piece of gold over Usman's shoulder and with it on Edwards, it gives Edwards the edge, I guess, psychologically. But I do think the fact that Edwards now has a very realistic game plan as to how to win this third fight is going to help him a lot, because going into the second fight, what were you telling Leon Edwards? Defend the takedown and, like, watch out for the power shots from the outside, but you still really have to worry from the outside. I don't think Leon Edwards is going to have to be as defensively sound from the outside, and I do think it'll allow him to take some more risks in his own fighting style.
Well, you did mention the odds. Kamaru Usman is still favored in the rematch, but it's somewhat similar to the fight that Amanda Nunes had against Juliana Pena. They're at a much discounted level. You have a look at the votes, Matt, and this is from our YouTube community tab. We throw it on out to you guys and threw it out on Saturday. Lots of you showed up. 1,200 total votes so far. Yeah, only 59% going with Kamaru Usman, 41% with Leon Edwards. Out of the comments section, Tyler Ferreira, you're there every week saying, very close fight for me. I'll give Leon the slight edge due to concerns with Kamaru's knees and lingering effects of the knockout like that. So pumped for it. Hot dogs, hard to see a path to victory for Leon. It is one of the greatest comebacks, upsets for a reason.
Really is.
Imagine Wagons, great name, saying Usman will play it safe and not risk anything on the feet. It will look like Usman Masvidal won. And just my 2 cents, rematch was a fluke. The next mauling by Usman will be nothing of the sort. And new boys. So a lot of people varied, and the votes are kind of, not 50-50, but much closer than they were the last time.
Oh, yeah.
We'll give Tapology. They're really close.
Really close.
61% Usman on Tapology, 59% Usman Fight Night picks. So Matt, ultimately, what's the pick here?
I feel like my breakdown has been very Rocky-centric, but I agree with a lot of our commenters. I do think Usman is going to go back to kind of what got his bread buttered in the first place. And I hate to admit this, but I do think this will be the case. I don't think this is going to be the most aesthetically pleasing fight to watch ever. Especially coming off Gaethje versus Fiziev, which is going to be just power combinations left and right. I really do think Usman, for him to have the best chance to win this fight, is going to have to use the wrestling, use that top control. It would be nice to see Usman use the ground and pound a little bit more, because for as dominant as a wrestler and a grappler as he has been, he's not a guy who's going to go out there a la Fabricio Verdum, get on top of you, elbow you, and go for the submission. I know different kind of grapplers, not the best example by me, but you get the idea with a guy like Usman. It is a lot more top control over the damage or the submission, but I do have Usman at the end of the day. I hope that I did give a good game plan for a guy like Leon Edwards, but I do ever so slightly have Kamaru Usman to get the belt back, but I don't think he's going to defend it 5 or 6 times after this. I think the welterweight division, a lot of guys are starting to catch up to that kind of championship level, so I'll be really interested to see what happens after this fight, but I do ever so slightly have Usman.
I tried to do the Verdum smile. It did not land. It was very creepy. So Matt, in this matchup, ever so slightly with Kamaru Usman, but again, I don't necessarily love the odds where they're at. I absolutely love the fight because with Leon Edwards, you look at it, and he's a guy that with Team Renegade, BJJ, and all the guys that are there, you can threaten with things off your back, even if you are taken down, and you can threaten with some strikes, then get out of bad positions. We've seen it done by Edwards in the past, but we've also seen Usman in the 3-round fight just be able to really ground it out, make it a little boring, and that was a big-time fight for Usman early on in his UFC tenure off of winning the Ultimate Fighter. So some really great fights on this card, a lot of time with Fight Night Picks talking about them. 6 total debuts, 15 total fights. You've got 10 ranked fighters that are on the card. If anything changes throughout the week, we'll do our best to update those. Last week you had a short notice switch up. Carlson Harris got an opponent in Jared Gooden. So if anything like that happens this week, we'll do our best to be out there as quick as we can. Get the tape study done, the notes, and so on and so forth. We have question mark kicks 2 hours before the prelims. That one's on Saturday. You can find us here on YouTube with Fight Night Picks, at Fight Night Picks, Twitter, and Instagram as well. For any of those updates, a big weekend of fights. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.